if you want people to take an ownership of a business, they've got to feel connected to it and to the people around them, don't they?
Yeah, and they've got to be connected almost to the journey, the story, the team, the whole lot, right? Yeah, they have to be on board.
We've had this conversation in previous episodes where I've sort of said, how hard is it to sell something you don't believe in?
Oh, yeah.
Well, similarly, how hard is it to sell something you don't feel some kind of a connection to? And how much better when you have an experience with a person who does actually feel connected to the business, you as a consumer of that business feel that you're really getting so much better value, don't you?
You feel like you're completely looked after.
Yeah, treated like a king.
If you want more time, money, freedom, and have a business that's not reliant on you, then you're in the right place. Each week, Mark Creedon, along with some of the very best business minds in the world, will take you through simple, practical steps you can take to create the business you always wanted. From his own practical experience, Mark will show you how to work less, make more, and get the business you always wanted, the one that you deserve. Now here's your host, one of Australia's most sought-after business coaches, Mark Creedon.
Welcome to the latest edition of the Mastermind for Business podcast. This is the podcast for you as a business owner. If you feel like you're a slave to your business and you'd really like to achieve three things, you'd like to have more free time, spend less time in your business on a weekly basis and more time living your life and spending time with your family without actually affecting your bottom line. And as always, joining me in the chair is Nick.
Thank you.
What a welcoming.
I know, right? Well, mate, we always lay out the red carpet for you. Hey, let's talk about, because you know the concept, Nick, and we spoke about this, our intensive on the Gold Coast, 2 weeks ago now.
Yep.
The theme of the intensive was empowerment, and it was really, there were three components to it, right? How do you empower yourself? How do you push through and stay empowered in difficult times? How do you empower your team or the people around you? And then finally, how do you empower your clients to want to actually do business with you? And one of the things that came up is if you really want to get freedom in your business, then you actually have to have the people around you taking ownership.
Yep.
And I reckon there's 4 or 5 essential ingredients. I think there's probably 5 essential ingredients in order to get people to take ownership of the business. How many times have you heard business owners say, yeah, look, my team, the problem is they just don't treat the business the same way I do.
100%, but they haven't been given the opportunity, have they?
That's right. So they haven't tapped into these 5 points. So Today, let's talk about 5 things I think that you should be focusing on in your business if you want your team to take ownership. Stop standing around saying they don't treat the business the way I do. You can actually help them to get there, get them to take ownership by focusing on these 5 things. And I think the number one thing is you've got to give them some challenging work.
Yeah. You got to get the juices flowing.
You do. Now, this is really interesting because I'm sure there's going to be people listening to this program right now who are in the same boat as some of our mastermind members. We had a conversation with Ash, and Ash was saying, that can be a little bit difficult because some of the roles in my business are quite mundane.
Right.
Right. So, for example, let's say you've got a retail business and it's just somebody that's, at the front counter.
Yeah.
And all they do is pass something over the counter and take a card in exchange. Real mundane. So how do you give somebody challenging work there? And I think the answer to that is you don't necessarily have to give them challenging work just in their role, but imagine what it would be like if they felt that they were being included in conversations around what else could the company be doing, whether it's customer service, whether it's marketing, whether it's brand awareness, whether it's product or product placement or whatever it might be. Mm-hmm. Imagine if you're saying to them, listen, I've got a little challenge for you. I'd like you to come up, we've got this product of the month. How do you think you might be able to best promote it on a daily basis?
Yeah. I think, the thing that you might find there as well is that you might get surprised.
Yeah.
You might get surprised by some ideas that Pity can come up with, that you probably wouldn't have expected from. Actually, Jade from the Metropole Sydney office mentioned that to me yesterday, is that, maybe putting the question to someone in wealth might have the answer about something completely different or about property management or something. So there's definitely space there to include them on things to make them feel part of the team.
Yeah. And I think, it's easy. I remember many years ago when I was at uni and I was working part-time at a service station. That was back in the days when we actually went out and fueled a car, show my age. actually put the fuel in cars. I mean, it was a self-serve servo, but they did. Anyway, so it's a very mundane job, right? And so how do you give somebody who, my job was to keep the driveway clean. Right. So it was to fill up the buckets with the water, make sure the watering cans were full, make sure the driveway was swept, any oil spills were cleaned up. Like it's a pretty mundane job.
Sure.
How do you get somebody like that and say, I'm going to give you some challenging work? But what happened there was we had a number of different promotions, and the guy who owned the service station actually came to me and said, listen, you're on the driveway all day. How do you think we could do this? What do you think we could do for Valentine's Day? Or do you think that there's a better way that we could provide the service, a window washing service or whatever it might be to our clients when they come in? And we came up with ideas like peak hours. So we would pump fuel from 7 till 8:30 in the morning.
Right.
So mums and dads on their way to school drop off, they didn't want to get the car. We could actually pump the fuel for them, wash their windscreen while they paid, etc.
Provide that service.
Yeah. And soon word got around that that's a place. So there was 3 or 4 different service stations petrol stations you could choose from. And it was interesting because one of the sort of area managers came out and said, oh, you guys are actually putting the service back into service stations. And it became pretty well known. So that was something challenging for me. I mean, I'll be honest, I was at uni, I was just doing it to make some coin.
Yes, of course.
It was just,
which a lot of people are.
That's right. It was just, that's right. It was just to pay the bills. But I think one of the risks that you've got is when you think, oh, how do I give somebody some challenging work? They don't have to be in a senior position or a challenging position in order to be given challenging work.
No, and I think, exactly what I said before, it's, you will be surprised. You could be surprised by what they come up with. At the end of the day, I think sometimes we're so across everything that we can be disconnected from what is day to day.
Yeah.
So boots on ground type stuff.
You don't know what's going on, at the coalface often.
Yeah.
You've actually, it's a little bit of a segue, and we'll talk about it in another episode, but one of my very early mentors was Bob Ansett. So Bob ran Budget Rent a Car here in Australia, and a great Australian entrepreneur. But one of the things that Bob insisted on is that once a quarter, his senior management team had to work on the ground.
Right.
So they had to work behind the counter.
Yep.
In those days, in a Budget Rent a Car office, they had to go and actually fill out paperwork and rent cars, and so they had to get a real idea of what it's like.
Sure.
And that's something that I'm really quite keen to help implement, within the other businesses that we're involved in. All right.
That reminds me, just quickly, it reminds me of part of Craig Bellamy's ritual when players come to Melbourne. So they have to go get on the tools. Yeah. So it's the first thing they do is they have to go get on the tools. Yeah. So they have to go work. I can't remember how long it is, whether it's a month or whatever it is.
Yep.
And they have to show up to work, every day, 6 a.m. And then they go to training in the afternoon.
Yep.
So it's something that every player has to do, whether you sign on $1 million or whether you sign on a, train and trial contract.
Yeah.
You have to go and do that work. And it's something that he's done for a long time. And it's the reason why they're so successful. It's getting you to realize, no matter what sort of level you are, is that, being at that ground level, being boots on ground and putting in the hard work, it sets you up.
It's akin to that All Blacks concept of sweep the sheds, right?
Yeah,
everybody's got to get in and sweep the sheds. I mean, these are great things that you can learn. So I think that the thing is, if you want people to have ownership, if all you're doing is, I use the term mundane, you call it entry level, which I think is a far better term. But if all you're doing is expecting somebody to come into your business and perform an entry level task day in, day out without any kind of challenge, you can't then turn around and complain, they don't even behave like they own it,
And also you can't complain when they go and find something else. Yeah. Because we're human, and by human nature we're going to look for opportunity and look for excitement in our lives. And if we're not excited by what we're doing, if something else comes along that is a bit more exciting, we're probably going to reach out for it. So I think, it's almost a little bit silly to think that people aren't going to.
Well, that's right. Something like that. I mean, we know the days of, you leave school or leave uni or whatever it might be, or TAFE or whatever, and go and get a job and stay there till you're 65, get a gold watch and retire are well and truly long gone. Thank God for that. But I think that there's still the opportunity that I always look at it this way. There's two things, I think. One, if for whatever time you have someone, if you can get the maximum out of them.
Yeah.
And two, if you can contribute to their career or their well-being or their growth, And I've had people work for me who've left and gone elsewhere, but they've gone on to bigger and better things. And I've always seen that as a compliment.
Yeah, 100%. Because they've taken their learnings and reapplied them.
Yeah, I've gone out to
better themselves.
How good's that?
Yeah.
All right. So there's 5 things. Number 1, some challenging work. Number 2, there's got to be some meaningful goals. Now, goals. I was listening to a podcast the other day, and they were sharing the story of Ebenezer Scrooge, right? A Christmas Tale, is it?
Yes.
Yeah, Charles Dickens.
Christmas story.
A Christmas story, thank you, from Charles Dickens. And they were saying that really there's a great business lesson. So the concept of Ebenezer Scrooge is that, you know, his life is about, his focus is about making money.
Sure.
It's about whatever's in it for him. He wakes up every morning and says, you know, my purpose is to make money. My mission is to get as much money as I can. And my belief is that I should be using you to do whatever I can get you to do to make me more money. And that's really, and good luck to you, whatever you might be able to get for yourself.
In it for himself.
Yeah. And, you know, we've seen lots of business owners that sort of end up like that, and they wonder why, you know, that has a certain life, a shelf life. It'll only go for so long, right? So
100%.
So what we've got to do is we've got to create some meaningful goals. And the reason I shared that story, and we might get into that in a bit more detail in another episode, but the reason I shared that story is that the meaningful goals can't be, we're here to make the business owner wealthier, or we're here to make, So there has to be some kind of a goal that resonates.
Well, it can't be meaningful unless it's meaningful to them.
That's right. It's got to resonate with them. It's got to be meaningful.
Sure.
So, you know, we talk about if we can help, certainly with the Metropole, we talk about if we can help our team members to achieve their personal goals and to feel good about serving the client, the rest will kind of just take care of itself.
Yep.
So if you want your team to take some ownership, you've actually got to give them that opportunity to have some meaningful goals for them to work toward. Yeah, which kind of makes sense, doesn't it?
Yeah, 100%.
All right. So number 1 was some challenging work. Number 2 was some meaningful goals. Number 3 is connection. And it's really interesting. If you read Drive by Daniel Pink, he talks about that most people in the workplace, I mean, they want autonomy, but they want to know that they belong to something, that they're a part of something. And if you think about it, without getting into the work from home argument or controversy or whatever, if you think about what one of the biggest issues that we had here in Australia, and particularly in places like Melbourne that were shut down for a very long time over COVID, where there wasn't an actual connection, was issues around mental health.
Yeah. Yeah.
So if you want people to take an ownership of a business, they've got to feel connected to it and to the people around them, don't they?
Yeah, and so they've got to be connected almost to the journey, the story, the team, the whole lot, right? Yeah, they have to be on board.
You know, we've had this conversation in previous episodes where I've sort of said, you know, how hard is it to sell something you don't believe in?
Oh, yeah.
Well, similarly, how hard is it to sell something you don't feel some kind of a connection to? And how much better when you have an experience with a person who does actually feel connected to the business, you as a consumer of that business feel that you're really getting so much better value, don't you?
You feel like you're completely looked after.
Yeah. Treated like a king.
Yeah, and it's one of those things too where I think the quality of satisfaction that you get from you know, any interaction like that with a client or a customer where you've achieved success, you feel so much better about it. The satisfaction that you get from that, if you have left the client feeling that way, you know what I mean? It's a different level of satisfaction. So being connected to it all across the board, especially to me, I think one of the most important things is being connected to where they've been and where you're going.
Yeah. You see, if we were to take meaningful goals and connections and put them together, and I've used this analogy in previous episodes, but I like to think of it as a jigsaw puzzle. Yep. So the meaningful goals is, what's the big picture? What's the picture on the box? So we're saying to everybody, look, our business is like a jigsaw puzzle and you are a piece in it. What does it look like when I flip the lid of the box over? Oh, I can now see this thing. This is a meaningful goal that I'm working toward. The goal is to attain that picture, right?
Yep.
But in connection, we understand, this is why I like jigsaw puzzle as an analogy. I mean, I hate doing jigsaw puzzles, but I love it as an analogy because each piece of the puzzle will only fit into that picture one way.
Yeah.
And it connects not only with the whole picture, but it actually has a connection with each and every piece around it.
Sure.
So if you, as a member of a team, if you feel connected to the whole picture and you feel connected to each of the pieces around you, whether that's your co-workers, your team leader or whatever, or your clients or your suppliers or whatever, but you feel that level of connection, then it makes sense that you're going to feel like you've got more ownership.
Yeah, it just does. It goes hand in hand, doesn't it?
Yeah. Two more things I think we need to focus on.
Yeah.
Number 4, opportunities to grow. You kind of tapped into it before when you said we're talking about, meaningful goals.
Yeah.
People you have to give them some way of being able to grow, don't you?
Yeah, you've got to be provided with an opportunity. If there's no room there for growth or any wiggle, they'll be out the door pretty quickly, won't they?
Yeah, and I've had this conversation with people when they talk about opportunities to grow, and they say, well, hang on, the role that they're in is, as you would call it, an entry-level role, and it has a ceiling, so they can't really grow. So therefore, Mark, I can't meet that criteria. And my answer to that is, well, no, you can, because you can give them opportunities to grow to the maximum potential in that role, number 1. But number 2, you can give them opportunities to grow personally.
Yeah, definitely. 100%.
So one of the things that Mark Beats from Barton's does, and Mark's a client, a good mate, is, he sends a lot of his team off to personal development courses. So they do the Dale Carnegie course, and I forget how many people he's sent from Barton's over the years, but in the many tens of his team that he sent through the Dale Carnegie, it might be close to 100 by now, that he sent through the Dale Carnegie course. And that's really an opportunity for them to grow personally. I mean, it affects professionally, but it's a real personal growth thing.
I think as a business owner, if you can understand that if your team are to grow personally, if they are to have some personal growth, that's only going to benefit your business overall, right? If people are growing, if they're feeling like they're moving, making moves in their life, they're not going to get stagnant, which means their work isn't going to get stagnant, right? So their work is going to increase. They're going to feel motivation and inspiration to do, even if they are doing the same thing that they've done for the past 3 years.
Yep.
They're still going to do it at a high level.
Yeah, that's right. It's interesting, Nick. One of the things I love to do is to get to know my team.
Yep.
I love to get to know, what they do on the weekends, what floats their boat, what's going on for them personally. And it's really interesting because if you're looking at opportunities to grow, if you want people to have ownership, this is about creating, I think ownership and loyalty go hand in hand here. If you get someone who's very loyal, they will be happy to step in and feel like they're a part of what you're doing and a part of your journey and your plan. They will take a sense of ownership in relation to the business.
Yep.
And therefore the success of the business and the success of the clients. So one of the ways that you can do that if they've reached the ceiling of their position is just to take an interest in them and help them to grow, whether it's in their family, whether it's helping them with parenting skills or whether it's helping a charity or some philanthropy that's really close to their heart that they can grow on, or they want to go do some personal studies or,
giving, and it could be even the fact that, they've never owned a home.
Yeah.
And it could be something that you could, help with them on if you own property yourself. There's plenty of things where people, and you're right, that it does go hand in hand, that ownership and loyalty does go hand in hand. Because if they feel that sense of ownership and you've given them, you created the connection, given them some meaningful goals, some challenging work, and they're provided with opportunity to grow, whether it be personally or within their role, then that loyalty is then going to be attached.
Yeah.
They're going to feel more attached to you and to the business overall, right? So they're going to feel some sort of obligation or responsibility over their work.
And it just makes sense, doesn't it?
It
Think
does.
about it.
Yeah, it does.
Okay. Number 1, giving them some challenging work. Number 2, you've got to give them some meaningful goals, things that are actually going to mean something to them. Number 3, a sense of connection, a connection to the business, a connection to you, a connection to the clients, a connection of the journey that you're all on. Number 4 was opportunities to grow and, not necessarily just professionally, but even personal growth opportunities as well. Finally, number 5, and this might sound almost trite to say that you need to say that, but sadly you do.
Yeah.
And that is to feel appreciated.
Mm-hmm.
Now, on one of our Friday sessions, I spoke about the concept of intrinsic versus extrinsic motivation. So for some people, they actually need this constant external reinforcement that they're doing a good job. For some people, it wouldn't matter what you said, it would be how they feel. So if they felt they weren't doing a good job, you could say it all day long, it wouldn't make any difference.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So that's the first people. If they need they're externally, second, internally, they work off their own self-applause, if you like.
Right.
But everybody likes to feel appreciated, whether you're internally or externally motivated. Everybody likes to feel appreciated.
To a certain extent, everyone likes a pat on the back, whether they're giving it to themselves or whether someone's giving it to them.
And they do. And you know, and sometimes, you know, it's just so easy. But the problem with easy things is because they're easy, they often get forgotten.
You forget them. Yeah, 100%.
So we've had business owners in Mastermind who have sort of said, you know, this isn't working, that's not working. I went, all right, well, let's start with this ownership model. And we get to the feeling appreciated. And I'll say to them, you know, have you actually shown them some appreciation? And sometimes there's this, that's all woo-woo stuff and that's not, or well, they get paid. So yeah, I appreciate them. But it's amazing if you can, and I talk about it in my book, How to Have a Business, Not Just a Job Without Nearly Killing Yourself in the Process, about, you know, one of the guys I worked with who turned his whole department around just by saying thank you.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's such a horrible way to look at running a business if you're looking at, well, they get paid anyway.
Yeah.
Because that's right. Okay, so you're doing the bare minimum for them. So they're going to do the bare minimum for you, aren't they?
Yeah, see, that's a really good way of looking at it, actually, because it's almost a quid pro quo type of, or the law of reciprocity, right?
Yes.
So you're doing the bare minimum for me, so guess what, pal?
Why would they?
Yeah.
I mean, at the end of the day, why would they? If they're going to get paid anyway,
yep,
right, which is your exact theory.
That's right.
Then they will do the bare minimum. They're not going to go to that next level. They're not going to, you know, feel appreciated. They're not going to see any opportunities to grow. So they're, of course, if they're not looking for something new, you know, they're just riding the coattails of the paycheck.
Yeah, and they're just showing up.
Yeah.
But in some ways, you've set that agenda. Like if that's your thought
100%.
process, you've set the agenda.
Yeah, you've set the standard.
Yeah.
And I mean, and also feeling appreciation and showing appreciation isn't buying the team pizzas on a Friday lunch.
No,
it's got to be personal. And it goes back to the connection, right? If you understand your team and you understand how they work and and how they function and what ticks and what doesn't, then you're going to understand what level of appreciation that they need.
Yeah,
and what means enough to them for them to be able to receive that gratification when you're giving it to them. You know what I mean?
Yeah, 100%.
So yeah,
I think you've hit the nail on the head there too, because I've often seen it in you know, terms of showing appreciation. People go, oh yeah, so we put pizzas on every Friday afternoon, or once a month we go to lunch, but it really does need to be something personal. It needs to be. So one of the things that I do, I mean, every day I come into the office, I go around the whole office and say good morning every day.
Yep.
And if I'm early in, then as I hear people coming in, I'll then get out of my office and go and say good morning. Every afternoon when people leave, either I wander around the office, but I leave before them and say thank you for the day. And it's genuine. Hey guys, thanks. Good stuff today. Really appreciate it. Or as they come and say good night to me, and I'll go, hey, listen, thanks, Nick. Good job. Thank you for today.
It's the little things, right?
Yeah.
It doesn't take a lot. And that's like what you said. It is the small things that get missed.
Yeah, they do.
But if they become a routine for you, like you do, you know, every morning you say hello, every afternoon you say goodbye. If it becomes a routine, then it can't be missed, right? It's just something that you do.
And to acknowledge it too, like we have one of the ladies in the office the other day just had a bit of a tough day personally. And so when she came in to finish up for the day, it was, hey, you know, good night, Mark. I went, hey, you know, good night. Hey, tough day. Hey, go home, relax.
Yeah.
You know, pour a drink, go for a walk, whatever works for you, relax, and it'll all be good. Yeah. You know, it'll all be good tomorrow, sort of thing. So I think just that again, that appreciation, and I'm going to go one step further than this, Nick. So one of the things that I always believe in is that not that we should just show appreciation to the people that work with us or for us, but to their families as well.
Yeah.
And so every year we've always run a family Christmas party where we invite the kids and we get a Santa and everyone's a present and all this sort of stuff. Yep. But the reason for that is that I believe if you're working for me and you're working 5 days a week, or you're in the office 3 or 4 days a week, whatever it might be, I believe that, you know, I want to thank your partner because she's actually giving up you. And I know then that, you know, there'll be times when people do some things out of work hours, or they put in some extra effort, or they stay back. And I just think it's really important that we just extend that appreciation, the fact that people they make sacrifices for us as business owners. And if we want to get our team to actually feel like they own the thing and actually want to make those sacrifices, we've got to show some appreciation for it.
Yeah, and I think, you know, it goes back to that ownership, goes hand in hand with loyalty.
Yeah.
Why are people going to work in the first place at the end of the day, right? They're going to work to help their families.
Feed their
live, right?
families.
Feed their families, put food on the table, whatever it is, right? Or grow or help pay for their kids' schooling or whatever it is, right?
100%.
So if that's why they're there,
Yep.
then surely their families have to be part of that ownership and that appreciation cycle so that they can then be extra loyal to you, right? If someone's partner feels a sense of loyalty to your business or your company because you've looked after them as well, well then it's almost like you got double security there, isn't it? And you're looking after them.
Yeah, it's really interesting you say that because we had somebody within the Metropole Group working on contract and I offered them a full-time position just recently and they actually said to me, well, look, I want to do that because I love working here. I love working for you. I really want to help you. I can see where you're going. Plus also, my wife says I have to stay here because I'm the happiest I've been for a long time.
Yeah.
So now that connection for her with the company really helps to take even more of a sense of ownership.
Well, every decision that we make within our lives, we share with our partners. A lot of them, well, I do.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? We share with our partners and they become part of that decision-making process too. So you'd be naive to think that they aren't a part of their work journey with your business.
Exactly.
As well. They're a part of it. And if you don't include them, make them feel appreciated as well, then, they're going to point out these things, aren't they? Well, it's right. You don't have any opportunities to grow within that.
Yeah.
They're not really getting any challenging work. They don't appreciate, you could do better. So they're the sort of things that the seeds that are planted at home that can affect their day-to-day stuff.
Really, really good point. All right. So if you like most of the business owners that we first meet in Mastermind, they sort of go, look, business is going great, but I just wish the team would take more ownership, more responsibility, act like me. There might be 5 things that's missing and you've actually got to create some challenging work. You've got to give them some meaningful goals. They've actually got to feel connected, some opportunities to grow and finally feeling appreciated. And as Nick and I just said, then moving that appreciation beyond just them, but out into their world as well. It's amazing. The more that you do that, the more ownership they'll have, the more loyalty it'll bring, and the more likely they are to actually take ownership of your business. Nick, these are the sort of things that we teach our clients all the time in Mastermind. If you'd like to know more about it, metropolemastermind.com.au. If you've enjoyed this content, please like and subscribe. It just helps other people to find us. Or if you know somebody in business who you think would benefit from the little bits and pieces that Nick and I chat about on a weekly basis, then please share this podcast with them. Until we chat next in the Mastermind for Business podcast, this is Mark Creedon and Nick. Please make sure you spend time with those who matter most.